brothers Wiss. The brothers Wiss, brothers Wiss. The brothers Wiss. The brothers.
You're now listening to Greg. It's the brothers Wiss.
Hey guys, this is our Whisperpalooza 2018 Recap podcast. It's probably been 4 years since we actually were able to meet at the end of the conference to have one. We used to do one every show we went to, and then we didn't. So this is Thursday. There's still fiber stuff tomorrow, but I don't think any of us are going to that.
We are.
We're going. Oh, are you doing? Well, I guess we'll have another recap with you guys and fiber stuff. I probably should sometime, but I don't never plan that far ahead. So I guess we'll just go right into it. What was the most interesting thing you saw at the show, and you can't say your own booth?
Should I start?
Whoever has something to say.
I think the new RF element stuff was interesting.
Yeah, I got messages from many people at RF Elements making sure, and I got paper invites, make sure I was at the product announcement. They were all like, "You will like this," and they were correct. For those of you that haven't seen the RF Elements videos yet, they finally made a connectorized twist port. It's got SMA connectors on it, and so then now you can finally use any radio with the twist port platform. They always had the carrier class, but it had end connectors, but it was more expensive, and their whole thing was getting you to transition to their whole twist port waveguide system, and I wasn't quite sure how buying an antenna that could only have end connectors would coax you to migrate to a waveport platform, or waveport is not a thing, waveguide platform, and so they finally made one. So now I can get some ultra horns on my B5Cs. Most of my towers are about 4 or 5 miles apart from each other. I think that'll really, I've got Juris dishes now, but might get a couple of those ultra horns and try those out. Supposed to be no side lobes of any kind, 20 some dB a gain, so.
Yeah, the high gain horns, then the asymmetrical horns.
Yeah, like they're 90 degrees, so I think it was 90 degree horizontal, I think it was a 25 degree vertical, which is a lot more vertical than you would normally get of a sector. Most sectors are going to be about 8 or so. And if you were to look at the gain numbers on a traditional sector, excluding the ubiquity ones that, I'm not going to say that they overpromise, but they conveniently pick the very peak of a very dynamic graph. Normal sectors are about 16, 17, 18 dB for a 90 degree by 8. These managed to get 16.5 dB of gain with 25 dB of vertical, or I should say elevation beam width, which means that there's that much waste of gain on a regular sector. You know, it's all the same amount of energy. So if it's the same gain and they take that 8 degree and spread it out to 25, all that other, for roughly the same power, all the other power was in the side lobes that were coming off. And that's just how dirty a sector is compared to their new horn. So I think we're really interested to see how that works. I'm gonna try to get some of those and put them up in my urban area to see how they clean things up. What else did he show? He showed me, oh, that was on the air fiber one. There's a new twist port that does air fiber and the prisms, the rocket prisms, and there's a little cubby hole for the GPS antenna, so that it's not out getting damaged. I don't know if they have that little cubby hole thing for the EPMP 2000, or if they even have a twist port for the EPMP 2000, because most of my sectors are there. Anyway, I'd like to try that out. Did either of you see anything interesting?
4011, the Baltic booth, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, around 411.
Looking forward to that.
So now, you guys do a lot of MDUs, well, exclusively,
Yeah.
nearly, as we talked for several hours a few hours last night about. Do you see that as being a viable in-unit router?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about using that to try to sell 10 gig to the unit. So it has potential to do that at a price that's affordable. So as a CPE, you know.
So like, are you gonna, so then would that be like an optional upgrade?
Yes, definitely an optional upgrade. Yeah.
So then I assume like it'll be very narrowly targeted at first, because you're gonna have to buy 10 gig switches,
Yeah.
and just gonna do like a building in one development, and
Yeah, and it probably won't be heavily marketed. It'll be selectively marketed, you know. We actually have the ability to do it in a number of buildings already. We just have to do some fiber terminations and add those switches, and then market that it's available, you know.
Sure.
But we don't have a lot of high bandwidth takers, so it's just such a crazy number, and we can actually deliver it, so we're sort of thinking, why not?
Sure, yeah, and you know, I think it'd be good marketing to, you know, because surely across all your units, you've got a few customers that you would go for it.
Yeah, I would go for it probably if I lived in an apartment that offered 10 gig. I mean,
Well, sure, yeah. But
if the price wasn't crazy, I'd be like, I gotta try this, you know?
But yeah, and so at least get the one, so then you can build the marketing material of, hey, here's a speedtest.net test, here's this, here's that, and look what we can do.
So 10 gig to the unit has some interesting limitations with the RB4011. The router itself only has one 10 gig SFP plus cage and 10 banks of 5, 10 2 banks of 5 1 gig ports. And so it's really, there's no real way to test that you're getting 10 gig to the unit, right? And I mean, there's no 10 gig copper port or another 10 gig port to plug into another device to do any other testing, So I guess you could have a server with 4 ports or whatever, and lag them, I guess, would be about as close as you're going to get. I mean, there's options, right? But
there's limitations in the block diagram as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
you would have to go across the switch group, so theoretically you could only get 2.
It's like 2.5.
Yeah, I think it's 2 gigs bidirectional to each switch chip. So technically, yeah,
4 gigs would be
4 gigs would be the best you could do. Yeah.
So there you go, limitation right there. So someone could say that they weren't getting 10, but the truth is, like,
They're not going to be able to.
they wouldn't be able to.
What server will be able to provide 10 gigs of?
We have a 10 gig.
No, I mean,
test
yeah, of
server
course,
on
if
our
you have a
network,
test
but
server yourself on your network for speed test, sure, but like for actual normal usage.
outside of, yeah.
And that was the other
We
last
have
part of
10
it,
gig
right? is
pairing
Even
with
even
content
if you
providers
had
set
a
up
10
to
gig
happen.
port on that router, and you had a 10 gig port on a computer, and you did a speed test, you're still not going to see 10 gig.
No, not with that and all the other firewall rules.
So
on
that's
the
the-
port, so
As soon as you get to 10 gig territory, it's actually nearly impossible to get full 10 gig on 1500 MTU even. So you would have to increase MTU. Latency becomes much more important because of TCP window scaling. It's a whole another discussion how to get 10 gig on a single TCP stream. So, yeah.
It's difficult. We've seen, what, 2.5, close to 3, onto a speed test server. That's the most we've seen. I mean, and it's 10 gig, wide open at a data center to a speed test server.
Some limitations in the VM.
A little bit of VM limitation, but man, I mean, still, it's significantly less than 10 gig. So that's one of the things we have to consider when we're considering deploying 10 gig in the apartment is how do we say that we're delivering.
So then I just thought of something. So that's the same chip as the RB1100AH X4,
Yep.
which it has, in its block diagram, it has those same two 5-port switches with 2 or 2.5 gigs going to them. But then, if I remember correctly, the assortment of the other ports, I think there'd be 3 other ports. I think those still only do 2.5 gigs. So then, is there a hidden, like, is there a not used 10 gig port on the 1100AH X4?
They have M2 slots for SSDs, and I think they took that 10 gig bus.
That's it's PCI Express lanes.
Yep, and took that and put an SSD
Okay.
on it instead.
Okay, yeah, because my fear was that it was really just another 2.5 gigs that was all the bus would provide, even though it was a 10 gig port. That was my fear.
Mhm.
I guess.
No, if we are talking about 10 gig as it is, I mean, if you are going to sell it in an MDU, what is your uplink, right? I mean, as soon as
Dark fiber.
yeah, but I mean, what
It's
speeds?
probably lit. It's probably lit 10 gigs,
Yeah.
realistically.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you are selling 10 gigs to the customers and you sell it to 5, 10, 15, 20 units, you know, and your uplink is still only a 10 gig uplink, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
You are absolutely correct.
You know,
They would never be able to get it anyway.
Yeah, so,
Right.
so at what point do you need to move either to QSFP, which QSFP is doable today. Like the 40 gig ports are not that expensive anymore, but as you scale, you know, at 20 units by 10 gigs per unit, that's, yeah, at what point do you need to move into 100 gigabit territory to be able to, like, I mean, this is of course years in the future, but sure, still.
I would say for the foreseeable future, if you were wanting to deliver that anytime they pressed the button they would get 10 gigs, you would probably still only need to deliver 20 gigs to a development because you said last night you're like your average at peak is a mega per customer, even though they have 100 meg or whatever plans. So then, just as long as there was another circuit available for everything else, you could just do a CWWWM. You just have 2 optics, just lag from there back to, some big switch.
That's how our network is built. When it's time for 20, we got 20.
Oh, and it's like realistically, when do you utilize even 1 gig of a connection as an end customer?
Never.
Speed
Yeah,
test.
never. Speed test, exactly. That's the only time you utilize that. So if you sell 10 gigs, like when will the end customer ever utilize this?
The only time I think that BitTorrent or downloading a game or downloading something from a server that's close by and also comparably fast.
Some people take a lot of pictures and then they upload it to, iCloud photo library or, Google Photos or whatever. So you can get the upload.
I suppose, but it will be a spike for, a couple of seconds.
Seconds.
And yeah, for 10 gigs, yeah.
As long as the server on the other side and the pipe to it can handle it, right?
It's not actually 68 in here. I'm gonna get hot.
It's because of the lights.
Interrogation.
It's a hot topic.
They have 2 models of that router, right? So they have the wireless one, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is because of the the potential to connect to if you had the right NIC in your device, you could potentially get a 1.7 gig wireless connection to the router. I know it's theoretical, right? You know, but so you could actually.
Still going to be about a gig when you're done.
My point is that is faster than any of the gig ports. You know.
You just need to do the in-base T and.
Yeah. Do you guys even know of any end user devices that actually have four streams? There is no 4x4 end devices.
There's got to be a
does
NIC for a
Microchip
desktop
support-
computer.
The new iPhone XS has 4.
Has 4 chains?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Does
I feel like some of the new iMac ones are also. They're like 4x4 plus Bluetooth.
Okay.
I think.
I mean, obviously you can get links for a PC, right?
yeah.
That's
I mean, like the average customer will not have a device to utilize this.
absolutely not. My only point was that the wireless could have a better performance for that router than the wired port. So that was interesting.
and then
Actually, sorry, here's a question. Do we actually know how much throughput that CPU will do? Like in a realistic,
It's on-
real world?
That
It's on
CPU
the
will push
website,
a
so
lot.
they should
Justin.
have it.
We've pushed gigs through those things.
4011?
No, the 1100s.
No, I mean, I'm
No,
asking
we
like,
don't actually have it in those X4s.
We have the Power PC
Yeah,
ones.
with the Power PC ones.
no, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Does anybody know, like, realistically, when we look at an end user use case, with NAT, with firewall, how much traffic will it push? I don't know. Just
I don't know either.
no net, do V6.
That's just a router.
Are we going on a V6 tangent here?
Let's see here. Yeah, I'm checking on the website now because it's on the website, so they have to have all the performance stuff listed already. Let's see here, routing.
Is there a no like a fast track in V6? Because
Yeah.
it still has a stateful firewall in it.
No.
Connection
Well,
tracking.
even if so, currently MikroTik only has fast track and fast path handler, even for IPv4. So
For
IPv6
6 anyways. So.
not even fast path, much less fast track.
Okay, so, wow, this is impressive. Routing, 25 simple queues on the 1518 byte packets. It will do 97.92.9.
Megabit?
Yeah.
Okay, so full 10 gig.
You have 25 filter, IP filter rules. It will only do 72.99.
So about 7 gig.
Which,
So if you add NAT, it will probably go to about 5 gig of realistic throughput, which is still very respectable for the price.
Under $200?
Yeah, exactly.
I think someone said that Baltic was going to be selling for 166 for the rack mount version. Like that's a lot of performance for the price. But
rest in peace, 3011.
So an interesting observation that was made I think in the Slack, I don't know if we ever talked about it in one of the previous casts, was that the 3011 had USB, and per many reports, the USB was not as good as it could be. I believe there was power limitations.
There were power limitations, there were compatibility issues. I mean, MikroTik solved a lot of them as time went on,
Yeah.
what they could solve in software, that is, but
So the 4011 has solved the USB problem by removing it. It only has a serial console.
so other than, actual like LTE modems, do you guys actually have any use case for the USB port?
UPSs. You can plug it into some UPSs
UPS.
and use the serial.
Oh, okay, so I don't have any direct experience with this, but from what I know, the UPS package in MikroTik has well, it only supports the APC protocol,
Yeah.
right? And from what I know, again, this might be completely wrong because this might be old information, but from what I know, there is multiple versions of the APC protocol, and they only have implementation for the older versions of the APC protocol.
We're doing it with stuff we're buying right now with USB, so
It,
it does do it.
It, I think it's CyberPower, is that a UPS brand? When I was looking at buying some, because about the same time my brother built a new house, I was going in a new house, and so, I did some actual structured cabling, and I've got CRS, and I got a back mount UPS, and I was trying to figure out what to get, and Alex Hart had he said that, he had a lot of good experience with CyberPower units with the UPS package, but it was it was certain ones. So I actually emailed Microtik, and I forget the dialogue
Check Wiki.
that we had.
Yeah, that's what it was. Check Wiki.
As it turns out, I think I sent like a sub out and said, hey, could you please support this? And I think they said we already do. I said, oh, okay. But it actually, it did have some of the rudimentary support, even on a non-APC. Now it may use the same protocol.
Yes, they use the same protocol.
But it was, it was another brand.
No, it's as long as it uses the APC protocol, which is at this point it's industry standard. It's like saying Cisco like CLI, it's Cisco like UPS APC like protocol. But I remember that there were some compatibility issues which probably are resolved at this point. Until APC comes up with another revision to the protocol.
But
For those routers, I don't think because we're going to be using them as CPEs, we wouldn't need the
True.
USB port.
True. But what about the SMB package? Well, it's not in a package. It's built in as you
I mean, it is a home router, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Are we getting into I want to connect my printer to the router territory?
Well, I mean, now we can control kid access as well. So.
I haven't even looked at that. What is it just like a scheduler, or does it actually do something?
Right now, it's pretty much just scheduling firewall, turning access on off through firewall and scheduling. And I mean, probably Microtik has plans for it into the future, but currently they call it in beta, right?
Okay.
Like the new Android apps and all of the new Microtik software for iOS, for Apple, for Android. So I think they plan to build that one.
Okay. Yeah. So actually, what it could really be is just a pretty interface for the scheduler.
No, the use case is right. It's not for us. It's for the soccer mom.
It's for our kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, but it's not like they added new functionality. They just made existing functionality easier to use, because you could have done that.
I mean, in a way, it is new functionality because it is completely new menus and completely new API endpoints and all of that. But of course, it is utilizing existing features.
So what else other than the 4011? Anything else that was interesting that people saw?
I saw a Bridgewave 10 gig radio, and I've looked at them online and I've read about them before, but I've never actually touched one. And so there was a couple of features that I found.
Where did you touch them?
Yeah, definitely. So a Ciclu has entrances for ports on the bottom of it. There's like screw-off glands, and the cables go through the glands, and then you screw them back on to secure it for water tightness. In the case of the Bridgewave, the whole face, like the case of the radio, comes off, and there's a singular gland. Well, there's two glands, but it's not actually a gland. It's just a port. And they said that you use a 1-inch conduit that threads onto it. They said it's just regular standard conduit thread, so it would thread onto it. and then your cables would run through that as your access. So it's actually like a customer piece required sort of thing, but they said it's standard and it's like regular hardware conduit, so hardware store conduit. But inside of it, there's like a cavity and a couple of ports. And so there's like actually a little bit of room to
Like some slack storage?
some slack storage. So you could actually have a splice in there if you wanted to or needed to, or have a pigtail and use a different kind of cabling that was pre-terminated but had a long pigtail. That's something we encountered early on with the SIG glue, is that if your particular cable, I mean, it's all on the right choice of cabling, and we've since figured this out and don't have the problem anymore, but initially it was that if we wanted to field splice something or field terminate something, our pigtails sort of had a minimum length, right? I mean, even our best splice efforts, we probably couldn't get a pigtail shorter than something like this, right? Well, to get it waterproof, the SIG glue really needs it to be an inch or less. I mean, it barely needs to come out of the tip of the connector, maybe a half an inch or an inch, and then it needs to be ruggedized from there on, or at least waterproof from there on. So you can get a pre-terminated assembly that does this, right? And so that's what we're doing now. But early on, we were taking outdoor rated cable and then trying to splice it, right? Well, what we ended up having to do early on was we were using liquid tight, you know, like from the gland on the SIG glue down. Well, again, the Bridgewave has this nice big open cavity, and you could pretty much take whatever jacket into it through this nice big 1-inch conduit pipe that they're going to allow you to put on there or whatever, and then attach it in that way. So anyway, I thought that was neat. They're also, historically, they seemed like incredibly pricey, like so much so that it was like not even gonna think about Bridgewave, you know. But they're actually cheaper than the SIG glue 10 gig radio.
Yeah, so that's what I thought was interesting in the past couple of years. You know, since IgniteNet came out, and people were, you know, oh, you know, SIG glue is expensive, SIG glue's high end, SIG glue. Before IgniteNet came out, SIG glue was the cheapo of the market. You know, they were the ones that were half price of everybody else. You know, Bridgewave, NEC. I think CI is cheaper than that tier. But you know, there's other many brands but like most WISPs didn't know about them because they were, you know, $30,000-$40,000, while SIG glue was 15. Well, now SIG glue is 5 or less. But
Depends on the radio.
But that's because IgniteNet was 500, and now MikroTik is 100. You know, I mean, obviously there's capacity, which is, from a WAP 60 to a Bridgewave, but there's also significant mechanical differences.
The other thing about the Bridgewave, when we say this, is they had multiple ports. So there were 3 SFP cages for various speeds. So it was like a 1, a 2.5, and a 10. And so the radio itself is the same radio, and you would buy license upgrades if you just wanted it to be a 1 gig radio, a 2.5 gig radio, or a 10 gig radio. It might even been a 5. It might have been 1, 2.5, 5, and 10. I don't remember the split. But there were 3 SFP cages, and the flexibility is neat because you could reduce your investment if you only needed 5 gig of capacity to start, and then scale up with the software license and changing the SFP port. Different than a single.
Talking about MikroTik 60 gig, apparently there is some news from the UK mom that
You were there
MikroTik.
one day.
Yeah, well, not me, but colleagues were there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there is news that MikroTik is in some regions enabling 2 additional 60 gig channels, which is allowing them to push the LHG60 to 4 kilometers at full speed. So if you are in one of those regions which allows the additional 60 gig channels, you will get a higher, higher channel width, and therefore you can actually go 4 kilometers at full peak, which is pretty nice. I mean, for the price of the LHG60, 4 kilometers at 60.
I've never heard of 60 going that far.
Yeah, yes. So in the U.S. traditional 60 gig band, you know, 1 kilometer, 1.5. So the camera stopped recording at 30 minutes because of some damn EU regulation. And I have to point it to Moss because that's where he's from.
Allegedly, EU regulation.
Somewhere in the EU.
Somewhere allegedly, because we didn't verify if this is also a US thing or not. So,
Well, we know it's an EU thing. Well, I know it's an EU
but we
thing.
don't know if it's not also a US thing.
Well, but we know it's EU, so we can stick with that.
Thank you.
It's root cause analysis.
Once you find one,
Once you blame it on something, I will look for anything else.
well, like,
Short-circuited or statement.
but of course now, because we took a break and whatnot, now I don't remember what the hell I was talking about.
Oh, we were saying that actually, as you
Oh.
go higher in frequency.
The 60. Yeah, so then the 60 gig auction
Absorption.
Peaks.
yeah, so peaks at like channel 2. So like channel 1 and then channel 3 and 4, I think it's 2, can go further simply because there's oxygen affects it less. So this probably just goes on to channel 5 and 6 and
Yeah.
7.
Also, I mean, obviously, the more wide the channel is, you can drop down modulation and keep the same speed at a lower modulation. So you can go farther with a wider channel at the same speed. So if you add those additional channels in the countries that actually allow those channels, you know, you can reach further.
True, true.
So is the U.S. one of those that's getting those extra 2 channels?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, we have allowed, like, the FCC does have that available, it's just no one has used it yet, to my knowledge. So that would be quite interesting, you know, 4 years ago, hearing of a WISP-focused platform being, you know, a feature leader in a band. You know, because there's always those are bridgeways type platforms were never WISP focused. They're always too expensive. To have someone like Microtech who's WISP focused be the first one in the U.S. You know, possibly we don't know.
Has some of those channels available now.
Do they?
Yeah.
On their 60 gig stuff.
Yeah. I believe so.
Well, used to be. Could
Still,
be.
I mean, Ciclo is also a WISP, you know,
Yeah.
territory of equipment. So.
Yeah. But you know that would be that'd be interesting to have them at least, if not the beginning, at the front of manufacturers doing this, and on and on a sub $200 radio. Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. During our pause, we also got some confirmation that yes, there is an RF Elements EMPP 2000 twist port. So we'll have to look at some of those.
I mean, you looked it up yourself.
No, there was a KBM guy here.
Okay.
But he left. So how did we get to 60? Were we talking about 60 to start? Oh yeah, Bridgewave.
Bridgeway, yeah, no, so, the list price I wanna say is $9,999. But
That seems that price seems entirely focused on cost plus some margin, doesn't it?
yeah, I mean, you know, to me, they just wanted to provide 10 gig for under 10,000, I think was the goal of their
Yeah.
product, you know, and I don't know anyone who's used it. So I'd love to know what they think, you know.
Sure works fine.
That just
It
that just
has
might-
it has the same alignment method as a Ciclo. It's very similar. The entry port is different. It's all external. It's like the Ciclo, you take one of the glands off the bottom and it's got an access port, and then you know connect in that way. Whereas on this radio, it's got like an external port, and they provide you with an adapter with prongs. So I mean, or with clips. So it's a very it's a very similar process, and use the same tools in the end to do the alignment, but the actual access on the device is different between the two of them. So, I mean, I want to try one, but we're Ciclu historically, and so we're reluctant to kind of mix just because we like Ciclu. So.
But Bridgewave had booths in previous shows. They didn't this time. I wonder if it's because their Navigator radio shipping has slipped a little bit. Navigator was supposed to be like the new performance for the Price King. Not a Price King, but it's supposed to do incredible amounts of performance for like $4,000 a link or something like that. I think it would be like a 4060 or 496 QAM, big channel, dual polarity type radio for under $4,000 a link, I think. And they haven't shipped yet, so probably didn't show. They didn't want to be embarrassed. You're gonna get yelled at. That's what would happen. They would just get yelled at. They wouldn't be asked about anything else. So I had referenced just a little bit of Cambium. Anybody swing by the Cambium booth or go to the Cambium presentation? No.
I had the booth to stay at for the entirety of ISPA, so.
I was at a booth too, so
I saw both of you not at a booth not at your booth at least once.
there were cookies.
Lies, all lies. I slept at my booth.
That's due to jet lag though, not because you actually stayed there overnight.
Yeah, exactly. Due to the time difference, technically, yeah.
I
It's,
don't know what they released. I think I heard that they released a new Pilot 240 or something like that. That was a AC2 radio
maybe, I don't remember that.
home router,
Could be.
something like that.
So the big thing was that they have switches now.
And cable,
I forgot to
Ethernet cable,
I
right?
forgot to bother them about that. I was gonna give them hell for that. That's silly. It's like $1 a foot. It is a super high-end cable. That's why it's $1 a foot, because it's got like it's got like double copper foiling and all kinds of stuff. It's a super high-end cable, but it would be cheaper just to put an SFP cage on the damn radio and avoid all the interference problems. But anyway, yeah. So they have switches. Seems like there's going to be 3 kind of lines, like an enterprise type line that so all lines will do PoE and not PoE. And then there's an enterprise line, which obviously was CN pilot focused. Then they have, I think, a WISP line and a tower line, of which I don't remember the distinctions because WISPs and towers are pretty similar. And I could misunderstand. So that Cambium also has like this CMM, Cambium management something device for their PMP platform. For a long time, they're on 5th, 6th version now. It's just an outdoor box, has a switch, power injection, and the synchronization, GPS synchronization injection into the cables and things. Sounds like they're going to make one of these new switches like that, to do the sync injection and whatnot. And then it sounds like they have one of those that does not do the sync injection for people that don't need it. Seems kind of strange to have ultimately 6 different lines, PoE and not PoE for each of those things. Seems like a lot of SKUs to have, but they were talking about trying to develop out their ecosystem. They had people buying all these CN pilots and then having to buy somebody else's switch to aggregate them together. We had different port arrangements. I think I saw a 48 port, but they had I think 8, 16, 24 type stuff. Don't know the cost. I don't remember the shipping. It's in one of the recordings I did that I haven't uploaded yet. I haven't watched it yet, so it could be a ship recording too, for all I know. Okay, I'll put you in charge of recording next time. And you can't see you at the booth because that was
We're
on
gonna put
Monday.
David in charge of recording.
Ooh. That'll be fun.
Did you get that? Your
did-
phone is blowing up.
I know it's just stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's
Just stuff.
I didn't even look at it, but it goes off all the time. Who is this? Yeah,
That's fun.
She said.
it's a family Google Hangout. People just chatting.
Oh, fun.
New stuff at the show.
Yeah.
Here, look, I got a couple things I'm gonna rattle off before I forget. All right. IgniteNet has a G.HN coax product. The same device is a master and a slave. When you using it as a master, it'll do 15 slaves off of it. So Ethernet uplink or coax out, and split it into your plant. And they said 1.7 gig aggregate for split amongst the 15 the 15 devices. And he said retail will be $75 per. So that's like something that's new. And then there's what was the other interesting product that we saw? Oh yeah, we'll talk about it quick. It's just Ubiquiti CloudKey Gen 2. There was a CloudKey Gen 2 and then the CloudKey Gen 2. There was like two sizes of them. One of them was a small one, and they said the small CloudKey Gen 2 was like kind of apple silver like and pretty looking, and it had it was just for the Unify controller, and they had a bigger, fatter one which just said Unify controller and the NVR controller on that one. So I'd never seen that before, but those are interesting propositions for certain situations. So
I haven't silenced my phone, but like it vibrates. I haven't silenced it because every time it vibrates, Justin looks at me, and I'm like,
I think you're sitting on your phone having a lot of fun over
yeah. So on that CloudKey Gen 2 with the NVR thing, they're going in an interesting direction. So they're
not going towards ISPs really. They're going towards like an MSP for that product, right?
and so like just recently discovered. Well, so I thought that the Unify 3 rebranding into Unify Protect was just another name change. It was a different name before, be another game in the future. But apparently, it seems to be like all new code again. I could be wrong, as it seems. But because they're not going to make it available initially, which means for a long time from Ubiquiti, only on the Gen 2 and VR Cloud Core thing, and not on a VM. So you won't be able to have this aggregation of stuff in one spot. You're going to have all these damn boxes places, and then when you log in, do you actually get like a real Linux CLI where you could then do an rsync to back it up, or is it, it's rhetorical because obviously nobody here knows. But it just seems like a real pain in the ass.
Yeah. Honestly, I've never been a fan of the entire CloudKey thing. I mean, if I want a machine that I either just do a Raspberry Pi, which what the CloudKey pretty much is a tiny ARM-based, DPM distribution. That's all it is. So either I do a Raspberry or I do a NUC or a similar, small form factor PC, which is now not dependent on Ubiquiti equipment. It's not dependent on Ubiquiti code. And I mean, honestly, Unify is just a Java application. It will run on anything, right? So just let me run it what I want to run it. Let me control it how I want to control it. If I have a Puppet deployment that controls all my Linux boxes, let me deal with it how. I mean, I get that their use case is different for it, but I don't know. I have just never been a fan.
I would never use one. I don't have a use case for it. It was new to me. Those were things that I saw there, interesting stuff.
I did see some new to me edge routers, because they had like, it seems like 7 or 8 different models, and I remember there being like 3. But I took pictures of them. I didn't go any further. Because
They have a light over there.
They had one of the lights. We got to touch.
I didn't see the
We
light.
got to touch one of the lights, and it was bright, man.
Yeah, that's
A lot of
They had
limits.
the
That's
wall
what lights do.
plate, touch wall plate thing there too. It was kind of neat.
See,
So
so-
slide up and down it.
Honestly, I am actually a fan of the lights.
I'm a fan of the light too.
I know people make fun of it, but I like it. I mean,
I do too.
Yeah.
I've ordered some, and I've been waiting for like 4 months.
no, anytime I could just pull more, Cat 5 or Cat 6 and connect my stuff all to that and control it through software, it's so much easier than dealing with like all the regulatory stuff to pull proper, 220 volt in Europe or 110 here. Here you just get whoever, you yourself pull Cat 5e, connect the lights, control it through software. I like it. That thing I like.
It does. My problem with it is the same as my problem with almost every other ubiquity. Hey, this new thing that I'm doing. Look at this. Is that how many of those are still here? MFi,
Yep.
AirVision that can, older Unify 2. They're just like, we're just gonna stop supporting those cameras, and
Yeah,
they're
the
not gonna work at all.
cameras were just.
Um,
We've got burned on that.
and the Unify Square APs, they've dropped support for these various things, but instead of just not adding new features, they just make it not work. So if it's an AP or whatnot, it's one thing, but like a light seems kind of important, and they could just randomly just drop support for something, and
That's uniquity.
And it's, you can say that, you can just not update it, which is a security problem.
And that's I think that kind of connects to the cloud key discussion as well. I mean, yeah, just let me install it and run the server for it myself, and if you stop maintaining it, you stop maintaining it,
That
right?
thing's an IoT device. It's got a TCP stack on it. It's probably got a command line on it. I mean, can you imagine, like, all your lights going off because someone got in your system and just start messing around?
Well,
Or
if that
hey,
system is
TFTP reload your firmware for your light? I mean,
no, I mean now we are getting into security, and then, if it's properly separated and segmented off and secured, then that is not a problem. If people are stupid and they don't have firewalls,
People are stupid, just
I mean, okay, but then they kind of deserve it. So I mean, if you are doing things the
Let the
wrong
lights be
way,
controlled.
your
By
light
someone
kernel
else's code.
panics, and now you don't have any control over it. I mean,
well,
you
you
have to
see.
cut the power off and cut it back on.
Okay, so if there is a kernel panic, there is obviously the purple screen, so the light just shines purple.
Oh,
And
well,
there's been a kernel
well,
panic.
these aren't the RGB version.
Oh, there you go.
That's the next version when they drop support for the current version.
Yeah, they come out with the RGB version.
Yeah.
So then also, so it goes back to a cloud key, Gen 2. Well, Gen 1s were the least reliable thing Ubiquiti ever made. And usually it was related to bad power, or at least, interrupted power.
An SD card for the boot, so got corrupted. That was it.
So like, if your power goes out and the cloud key gets corrupted,
Yeah, do you lose control of your
then you
lights?
can't turn your light back on and power comes back on? Like, does the light have a default on or a default off, or can you? So then you're in the dark, and now you're really in the dark because you have no lights.
Well, it's an interesting proposition because it's for corporate environments first. They built it as a 2x2 square, which is a drop tile
Yeah.
square. So you should be able to retrofit existing properties and literally just drop them into place of these old lights, right? And again, anyone can do it. So the installation cost could potentially be low, right?
This is where I like it. I mean,
And-
it makes sense.
And then the other thing is you also know your power usage. You know your maximum based on the switch. You're like, okay, well the switch's max draw is this. So here's the most that I can use for this amount of lights. You know?
No, like light over PoE makes great sense to me. It's just you have to do it right. You have to do the software support right. You have to do and you have to not drop the support for it after. Yeah.
The lights themselves are on par with regular ballasts that you would put in a commercial environment. The price difference for the investment is the switching infrastructure, because a PoE switch is not as cheap as other switches. But I guess you could use an old 100 meg switch, you know, a refurbished.
You probably don't need a gigabit to the light.
Well, you know,
You never know,
maybe it
man.
transmits data through
Yeah,
the
Wi-Fi.
light to your
Wi-Fi.
device.
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's Wi-Fi.
So, they're gonna watch this and now they're gonna have one of those Wi-Fi things.
Just imagine all the seizures.
TM.
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 Quickly trademark it. Quickly trademark.
Crown Castle was at the show, alright? I think that's really cool. Crown Castle had, their map with towers on it is crazy. So for the Wisps
They've
out
got a
there,
couple, yeah.
they've got a few, and they want to work with the Wisps. And I think so I talked to some of them at the booth. They have significant fiber assets in our area, and so we've been dealing with them for their fiber stuff. So Crown Castle recently split off into two different departments. There's Crown Castle Tower and Crown Castle Fiber, and they are actually separate entities, although they do work together because they meet at every one of their locations, you know. But the fiber people have given me some fiber quotes that have been on par with all the other carriers in our area. Historically, we didn't even know they were open to quoting us not near a tower, not even close to a tower. Yeah.
I did.
You knew that?
Yeah.
We've never used them as a carrier for our area, you know? And or that they were competitive.
But so was it Legacy Sedera in your area?
Sedera, they brought Synesis as well. But that's like
Yeah.
northern map a little bit.
Yeah. I think they also bought something maybe a little bit further south. I think it was like Mid-Atlantic Broadband.
Mid-Atlantic Broadband still exists. They actually ride Mid-Atlantic Broadband for a little bit of the segment.
So
So
then,
maybe they bought some strands from Mid-Atlantic Broadband or something?
there must be another company with a name similar to that. Because they bought a company with a name similar to Mid-Atlantic Broadband. They couldn't just be Atlantic Broadband. It could be Mid.
Yeah, something along
else.
those, I'm sure. But NBC is still an entity in like the southern part of Virginia.
Okay.
I actually deal with them as well, so I know that NBC still exists as NBC. But there could be another NBC, or could have been another NBC, you know. So like I deal with a company that whatever. There's initials coming in. Anyway, Crown Castle was very friendly at the show, and they were trying to let the Wisps know that they want your business. So, my pro tip when you're buying from carriers is don't forget it's a negotiation. If they tell you a price, it's not the final price, that's the starting price. So don't be afraid to tell them what you need it to be.
24/7 Mid-Atlantic Network.
That's cool.
That was the name.
So, in our area, Crown Castle has pops in brown boxes at many intersections for stoplight infrastructure, I guess, or cellular micro pops. And one day I saw one in an area where I need some fiber, and I was like, huh, I wonder like if they're actually willing to sell this, because I need it like 20 feet from this brown box on this pole here, you know. And sure enough, if they've got capacity, and they actually indicated that they were willing to build. They had no aversion to small builds, which in an urban environment, sometimes companies are like, no, we don't touch that area, you know.
I figured they would do whatever you wanted
for the price.
Just add a price to be determined later.
Yeah. So anyway, Crown Castle was here, and they got towers.
D-Kicks was here too.
Yeah. So D-Kicks, internet exchanges are the magic sauce. Behind good internet service, whether you know it or not, your traffic may or may not be, but should be going through some internet exchange at some point in time, and that's providing you access to, or the best access it can to content that you want to get to. And so one of the premier internet exchanges in the world was represented, the U.S. branch was represented at a booth there. Other than attendees who are part of exchanges, I believe it's the first internet exchange to participate in Wispapalooza.
It's definitely the first booth.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's, first booth. Ed has been here as a visitor before.
Anyway, I think it's a good stand and a good move on their part to let the Wisps know, hey, we're
He
here.
was educating a lot of people too.
He educated a lot of people on global transit. And what his main message is, you don't have to be where we are to peer with us. You can use transport to get to where we are just to peer with us, and there's still strategic advantage to doing that. And so I think that's a good message, right? If you want to get to the European market, he's in New York and Dallas, and D-Kicks is in New York and Dallas, and so they provide a lot of fantastic routes to European content and vice versa. So I think that's important, and there's intrinsic value in everyone having fast routes. The faster the routes, the less congested the path. So and the better end user experience.
For those that don't know what D-Kicks is, it's the Deutschland Commercial Internet Exchange, originally based in Frankfurt. They've got several, many, not all, but most of the data centers in the Frankfurt metro area. They've been around for 20 years. They are also the exchange with the most amount of traffic. They don't have the most networks, but they have the most traffic of any internet exchange. And I'm going to guess it's 7 or 8 terabit for a daily peak. And several years ago, they branched out to several markets, and they keep doing so. But in the U.S., they entered New York, and they're doing pretty good there. They might be number 1 in New York now.
They're the fastest growing in New York. I read that somewhere. Don't know what that means or compared to what.
Well, if nobody else is growing,
Yeah.
and you are, then you are the fastest growing.
Well, either way, they're the fastest
Yeah.
growing. However you want to quantify that.
And there are several exchanges. There's like 6 or 7 exchanges in New York, and they've gone from 0 to number 1 in 3 or 4 years, something like that. Dallas has been a little slower in uptake, but I've been seeing some updates from there. But what's nice is that D-Kicks is very, education and helping the great community. And I haven't looked yet, but apparently there's a lot of resources that are, I know they have a lot of sort of technical resources because I've used them before for our exchange, but it sounds like they have a lot of, novice resources available. So when I get some time, I will look at those, and I will gladly share them to use their money instead of spending my own.
Education was a big part of their marketing campaign, even at their booth, I mean, it's sort of interesting that an internet exchange was at this event, representing the internet exchange, not as members of an exchange or something like that. But they technically are selling a product, but not necessarily in a market for everybody. They're just like, hey, we're in these 2 locations in this country, and if you can get to us, it's incredibly beneficial for your customers. And they were like, hey, there's a lot of ways to get to us. and here's how you benefit, and here's what sets us apart from our competition, and why would you want to peer with anybody? Why would you want to peer with us? They had a lot of answers, and I thought it was good. Hopefully, some of the WISPs who have data center presences and have the ability to get to one of the DKIG's facilities will look into what it can add to their network.
Welcome back. The camera stopped recording again. I'm going to assume it was the EU this time, but I don't know for sure. If it is the EU, then I did some research a couple days ago and found out that there appears to be some alternative firmware I can put on there to disable that functionality.
Posed on us by who? The EU?
Now, you know that if it was Tom Smith here with you, we would be giving it all to Tom Smith. But since you're the only EU guy we have, it's all on you.
It's hard for us Europeans, man. I mean, everybody giving me a hard time. It's just.
So at the show,
Earlier today, sorry.
you first.
Yeah, so Streetway was giving away a truck again, right? And I came in and I asked, joking, what can I do to win the truck? And the first question of them was, are you American? Obviously, because of the accent. I'm like, no. Then, well, you can't have the truck. Tax purposes. So, yeah, well, thank you.
Just give me money then.
You're also an exhibitor, so you couldn't get it anyway.
I know. I'm making a big deal out of it. It wasn't that way at all, but yeah.
You're not eligible, bud.
Yeah.
No truck for you.
First strike, I was an exhibitor. Second strike, I am from Europe. So, yeah, I mean, I was ready. Like, go through a TSA and just tell them, can I take my truck with me here? And can I check this in with my baggage? But no, apparently not.
And so a downfall of this last recording is we don't actually know how long ago the camera stopped the last time without playing it on the camera.
You set the timer this time so we know.
Well,
On your phone.
I figured that we wouldn't really have a whole lot more because we've talked about a lot and we don't know what we need to recap, so we're not going to.
I got like one last thing, so I don't know if they've ever been there before, but Dasan Zone was there. Have they ever been at the show before?
I know they've been there through distributors. I don't know if they've been there officially.
Also, Dasan Zone had their own booth, and I spent a while talking to them about a GPON solution that we're looking at deploying soon. And they were really helpful and knowledgeable and willing to work with smaller companies. And then the same thing goes with Nokia was there. Nokia was there in a couple of different
Who did you say?
aspects. Nokia.
Nokia. Okay.
So,
I heard Nokia. I'm like, what the
Yeah,
hell
that's
is
what
Nokia?
I heard too.
sorry, yep. Pinocchio was there. So good old Nokia, my buddy.
So is that like a Nokia sales rep because they just
So,
buy and eat whatever they want?
Nokia had their own booth, right? And it was the radio stuff, right? Well, so right next to, Millennium, the fiber distribution company, where they do custom cable assemblies, fiber equipment, tools, all kinds of fiber stuff. They actually do distribution for the Nokia stuff, and so they had a Nokia section of their booth. And he wasn't there the whole time, he was there the last 2 or 3 days, the Nokia rep. And he actually works for Nokia directly, but he works in the fiber to the FTTX department, And so he was pretty darn knowledgeable about their product line. And one of the interesting things that I want to say for the WIFs out there is
that's most of our audience.
that's what I'm saying, is that Nokia actually has they don't want to make their chassis for their GPON any smaller. They're like, in order to make it a carrier grade product, the chassis needs to be of a certain quality. So we don't want to make the chassis any smaller, but that sort of increases the base price for you to enter into that market. But they actually have a pay-as-you-go model where they can enable ports as needed. So if you bought a bigger chassis with more ports than you needed, they aren't asking you to give them the full cost of that product. You can pay they enable ports.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. I didn't know that was an option, right? Because sometimes a large GPON head end is oppressively priced, and you're like, there's no way I'm spending $40,000 on this thing. But if you only had to spend 10 and you could scale without new equipment, that becomes much more appetizing, you know?
I'm pretty sure that if the pricing is all similar to what it was when it was Alcatel-Lucent and I had it quoted, it was like, it wasn't the, prices you go model it, I mean, I ain't getting more because I actually needed that quantity for the project, which I didn't get because of corrupt Illinois government.
That's on record now.
How do you feel? No.
No, just go to any newspaper, TV station, whenever they post something, like, there's always stuff. Like, so, we got one guy running for governor, and, like, the comedy that he's in Chicago, like, declared that he was attempting to defraud the tax system by something that he did. And so, instead of this being like, his campaign is over, he just paid it and it's done. I'm like, that's even more corrupt. Like, the fact that you got caught, you just paid him. Anyway, let's probably get back on topic. But it was still massively expensive. So, I'm thinking, like, if it was less than that, it's probably still really expensive.
The Dawson Zone stuff, not Nokia. Nokia, I didn't really get too specific on pricing, The guy was knowledgeable about the product, but not super knowledgeable about the pricing. Either that or it wasn't in his purview to provide that information,
Or he wanted to talk about it, not scare you away.
Exactly, yeah, maybe that was it as well. But long story short, I thought it was cool that pay per port, like, scalability was an option.
Oh, that certainly is interesting.
It makes sense that they would not scale the OLT down to a size that they weren't comfortable with, right? They did have a 1RU model, right? So it's not like you had to buy the big monster. They even had an 8-port OLT. And so even if you needed a small deployment, you only needed 4 ports. I'm assuming the same thing would apply, But Dawson Zone had a product. Their GPON ONTs were priced cheaper than any of the competition I've ever seen. And I've been looking at those things pretty extensively recently. And they even had a wireless AC, a GPON uplink wireless AC router with 4 ports, an ATA, and RF out. So you can do an RF overlay and bang out coax.
Yep, really small for that.
Yeah, for a price that was lower than any other I've seen, period. And also their pricing on their OLT itself is not what I was expecting compared to others I've seen. I've heard of the Nokia prices. Compared to that, it's like, anyways, long story short, it was in a range that I thought was workable, right? So that excites me. Those are 2 products that I guess are probably new to being introduced to the WISP market, but are going to be starting to be used more and more by WISPs. So, anyways, Dawson Zone, keep an eye out for them, and Nokia. Nokia, all right. One thing about Nokia that I'd never seen before, and maybe anyone else has seen it before, but they had a home gateway that was looked like an Echo, an Amazon Echo, like a cylinder device, and it was Wave 2 wireless AC. It had RF out, GPON uplink, and a companion app. The companion app looked polished, and that's the one thing I could say is, like, it looked like a polished, like a wow factor Nokia product, and that is something that we always keep in mind when we're looking at products. What's the end user experience like? Again, I don't know that this was a product geared towards an MDU environment like we need, but it was still neat to see a product with a polished looking management app for an end user.
Sure. I'd like to note that it took some encouragement to get Adam to sit in a chair in the view of the camera.
I never did any introductions.
true. I just assume everybody knows everybody. I mean,
So they're, yeah.
so I guess we should say, who are you?
Oh, yeah.
After an hour of podcast,
Hey,
let's see
well,
how this is our
if you're still with
We're
us-
signing off, right?
Yeah, this is probably the end. So if you're still with us, thanks for listening. I am Adam Bell. I work with Justin Miller here, the network wizard, and I'm not a network engineer. I'm a business development guy, but I have my finger to the pulse because Justin and I build the networks together. And so in order for me to make good sales, I have to consult my network engineer to make sure this is possible and feasible. And then I have to crunch the numbers to make sure we can pull off what we want to based on the network design. And so we work hand in hand to build networks together. And so that's why I'm interested in a lot of these fancier things like peering and equipment. And
I want to see you work hand in hand the rest of the night.
Aww. Anyways, so we work at Virginia Skywire. Shameless plug. And yeah, Justin, the network wizard. Off to you. Y'all know him as Miller.
Justin
Yes.
Miller. Yeah. Brothers Wisp. Let's go. Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas.
Have a sleep. Wake up.
I
What time
think-
is it? Local time for you right now. It's
So
9 hours.
local time is 5:08 a.m.
Time for bed.
Yeah, the jet lag has been killing me here. It's 9-hour difference is quite bad, but yeah.
It,
He has Unimus as his product, and he's one of the hottest booths at the trade show.
No, it was really nice meeting all the people and talking to all
I was
the
moved to
people.
the show without a pretty lady.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have a pretty lady. I'm pretty, but I'm not a lady, so no. It was really nice talking to all the people. Thank you everybody that came by. It's really nice hearing like when people actually tell you that your product is useful to them and that they like it, and that in a lot of cases it literally saved their network. It always helps knowing what people think. I mean, those that know us, we really like to listen to feedback. That's the only way to make the product better, right? To actually listen to people who use it. So yeah, it was really good. Tons of people stopped by. I'm exhausted. My voice was gone yesterday, so yeah, it was fun.
What's your URL?
Unimus.net.
Thank you.
It, yeah, so, well, I'm Mike, and you know me. But, well, it's because I'm the one that's, I'm the one that's on every show.
Yeah.
If they're watching it now, they probably watch our shows.
They're not watching it now. This is not. We don't have a live app audience.
Can they see out there? We're on the 37th floor of the Rio Hotel
Are you sure
in
there's
Las
that,
Vegas.
a little, pinhole
I
camera?
don't know. Periscoping this that we don't know about or something?
We're overlooking the
I don't
Vegas
know if
Strip.
they can. Maybe you can do that.
Probably. Yeah.
It's, maybe,
Facebook Live.
But,
Ooh, that would get us in a lot of
Yeah.
trouble.
but yeah, so go back to what I was saying. So it took some encouragement to get him to even sit in the chair. And then we started, he said he had 2 things to talk about.
Then could get shut up.
Well, you guys were like
And now
not
he's talking
talking.
the rest of the time.
Come on, you guys are like not talking.
Well,
I mean, and
no.
look, so to be fair, they were behind booths, right? Mike was interviewing people, right? So I had the luxury of being able to deep dive into some of this stuff, right?
Yeah, you know, it's hard to get a lot of stuff done because you go walking somewhere and somebody wants to talk to you for a while. You stop and talk to them for a while. Next thing you know, it takes you 3 hours to go to your room to get your laptop and come back.
Yeah.
When the exhibit hall is closed, so people are supposed to be in sessions.
Oh, I have one last thing.
Yeah, sure.
So there were actually multiple people, and thank you, you know who you are, that said that they miss me on the show. And I just want everybody to know that I blame it on everybody else. So recently,
Blame the Americans.
yeah, I blame this. See, the camera shutting off is the EU fault. The me not being on the podcast is the Americans' fault.
No, I think that's still useful.
Okay, then.
I mean, you
Change your time zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, but to be fair, I have tried a couple different ways to find better scheduling. It's just difficult
Oh,
getting
yeah.
everybody to.
Well, so yeah, to the people that asked, again, thank you. And yeah, so for me, usually the podcast starts at 2 a.m. my time, which is not. Sorry, I can't. I would be falling asleep. So I blame it on everybody else. And that's a joke, of course.
I think we talked about having like an early morning for us in America. One. But we haven't actually scheduled it. Last time I scheduled like an alternative day, I think the first one you were available, but I wasn't.
No, it's
And then that was it.
scheduling across 3 time zones because we have Australians and New Zealanders, we have US, and then we have Europe. It's painful.
But all right. So was there anything else we had to talk about, other than what didn't get recorded that we don't know?
We don't know what we don't know.
Tomorrow's Fiber Friday, so it's not over for all of us, and so tomorrow we're excited about seeing some stuff. There's actually like a session where they're talking about some different fiber installation methods, and they're going to be talking, one of the things that they're talking about is fiber jetting, which I hope they have a demo.
Just like they're on the floor, they're just
I don't know, man. Hopefully they have some jetting equipment and some conduit, and they can show us what that does, man. I think that would be cool just to see. I doubt it, but at least maybe they'll have a video or something. I mean, I've seen videos. But it's interesting. I'd like to hear the whole presentation, I guess. Different OSP models. Yeah. There's an advanced troubleshooting session, which I think is something that's worthwhile. Yeah.
Turned on?
Yeah. Okay.
Where else is the light?
I don't think that's.
There's a lot of light right here. Oh, that must
I
be
think
where
it's
it's broken.
where
Alright.
is yeah.
show media Ethernet 7 transceiver detail. Yep, it's not there. Okay, it's broken.
Yeah, not working. Roll the cable. Okay, there you go.
Roll the cable so you don't have a light meter.
Man.
Do you have a light meter?
Yeah.
Okay, that was because I
Got a little Expo one, it's about this big. Has Bluetooth for your phone.
you see I got the $25 Fiber Store one.
Yeah, we're gonna get some of those ones.
It still tells me TV,
Yeah.
although it would be much more useful on the phone. Yeah, but
Did you get the Fiber Store price up increase emails?
I did. I think they only sent them
It's his
after you
fault.
order. Just in
As
front
a
of the
point
Trump
control
Tower.
tower.
But
Doesn't affect SFPs.
it correct, because I ordered SFPs and they sent me the email. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, but does not affect. But this doesn't affect what you just ordered.
It does affect patch cables, but realistically, it's a 10% increase
On a
And
dollar
we're-
patch cable?
Yeah, exactly. So like, you tariffs. But anyways, that's real.
It's a trade war.
That's a thing, yeah. So that's why Dasan Zone is like taking over the market. I'm not saying that's why, but clearly that has some impact on it, right? Because Huawei is not here this year. Yeah. Anyways, that's just a point. They were here last year.
ZTE was there though.
ZTE was here.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
And like some of these vendors that like, assume they aren't well known to the greater community. Say half of the companies don't know who Huawei, ZTE, whatever are.
Is
And-
Huawei not huge here? Like in Europe, Huawei is huge.
No.
They're huge everywhere but here. But I think the manual's intimidating.
Now. The Huawei manual is no different than its Cisco counterpart.
Okay.
Because they just changed they just did find replace.
Control R
Um,
or Control H.
But yeah, and so like I've seen the ZTE lately. Like I saw her the other day. I was talking to her a little bit. I don't remember what her name is right now. But like every time I've like I'm not looking at them all the time, but like, every time I saw their booth, like, hey,
Easy to you.
Hey there.
like, there's nobody there. It's like, what you, like, I mean, honestly, people must go there because they wouldn't come back. But, like, every time I attempted to look, there was nobody there. It's like, what's the threshold where you don't come back? There's not just them, but there's lots of others. Like the cable guy next to you. Was anybody ever there?
There were a few people.
Okay.
Like a few, but actually sometimes I wonder because when I looked at how much equipment they had to ship here, plus a booth at Vispa is not cheap, and he had maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 people across all of the 3 days.
So he spent like $300 a person to talk to somebody.
Yeah, at least with all the equipment and shipping and the time he has to pay because he was there
Oh, yeah.
3 days plus
Yeah,
the
so,
booth.
and so time like I was thinking just hard cost, but yeah, so
This is the enclosure ground guy?
No, the other guy on the other side.
Oh, the coax guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
that's a lot. But
Little Giant was there representing. I thought that was awesome.
yeah, a lot of people at their booth.
Well, those Little Giants are sweet, man.
I mean, I never stopped to look at ladders, but
I didn't either, but they
I
are
mean, it's like-
sweet.
when I was sitting in Thomas's booth eating food, taking up his space, I did look over and think, oh, that.
Oh, you were eating food.
Justin gets hangry. We probably should end
Yeah, we
this.
should probably go. Justin's gonna eat somebody. I can see now. Before when I was happy that my phone was vibrating, he was looking at me. The happiness of him looking at me is no longer here.
The times have changed.
It's a different kind of look, less sensual. All right, well,
We're gonna take Tomas to the Vegas Strip for his first time. So,
America.
America. That's where we're headed.
Now I'm a little bit scared.
Oh no, not Vegas strip clubs, just the Strip. So nothing to be scared.
Well,
we're not gonna tell Tassos or any of the other our fellow guys. It'll be okay. I'd imagine it get a little difficult, but they went on.
Do you have some experiences which I should know about?
all right, we're done recording here. Let's go.
All right.
Tassos is a bit, is a large personality.
All right, and bye everyone.
See ya, we're hungry.
And it stopped recording like 15 minutes ago.
It's the Brothers Wisp. Let's take a ride through space on this mothership. Wireless networking. We talk about equipment and methodology, so sit back and start learning. Lighten up the tower so people can start searching. Shooting up the web in neighborhoods, net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.